In a glass tower that pierced the clouds, Isabella Vance commanded a world of silent, hostile geometry. Her desk was a slab of polished obsidian, her chair a throne of steel and leather. From this perch, she ran Vance Aeronautics, a titan of industry forged in her own image, ruthless, efficient, and emotionally sterile. Her manicured hands, which had never known a callus, signed directives that could ground fleets or launch new empires into the sky. Her loneliness was a fuel, burning cold and bright, propelling her ever upward, away from the messy, unpredictable terrain of human connection. Miles below, in a world of concrete, oil, and honest labor, Marcus Cole tightened a bolt on a sputtering engine. His hands, mapped with grease and scars, knew the language of machinery not as a concept, but as a conversation. He was a mechanic, a widower, a father. His universe was contained within the four walls of his modest garage and the bright, boundless love he had for his 8-year-old daughter, Maya. She sat on a nearby stool, her crayon drawing of a winged car, a splash of impossible color in the gray workspace. Marcus, a former elite military pilot whose brilliance had once been a national asset, now found his purpose in her smile. He was a hidden virtuoso, his genius cloaked in humility, his past a locked room. A torrential downpour lashed the city, turning streets into rivers. It was on this night that Isabella's world collided with his. Her custom-built supercar, a marvel of Italian engineering and Vance Aeronautics avionics, died with a gut-wrenching shudder just yards from the glowing sign of Cole's Auto Repair. She was late for a gala where she was to be named Innovator of the Decade. Stranded, furious, she stormed into the garage, her designer heels clicking with impatience on the stained floor. "You," she said, not as a question, but a command. Her eyes swept over the humble shop with disdain. "My car has stopped. I need it fixed. Now." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag, his calm a stark contrast to her coiled fury. "What seems to be the problem, ma'am?" "If I knew that, I wouldn't be here, would I?" she snapped. She pulled a wad of cash from her purse. "This is $5,000. Get that car running in the next 10 minutes, and it's yours." It was a challenge, a dismissal, a public test of his perceived inadequacy. The world she knew ran on money and power, and she expected this simple man to either fail or grovel. But Marcus merely looked past her, to Maya, who was watching them with wide, curious eyes. He would not be belittled in front of his daughter. He gave a slow nod. "I'll take a look." He felt the weight of her condescension, the sting of her assumption. But a quiet confidence settled over him. She had no idea who she was talking to. Isabella followed him out into the rain, holding a ridiculously small umbrella that did little to shield her silk dress. He opened the supercar's engine bay, a complex nest of carbon fiber and polished chrome. She expected him to stare, bewildered. Instead, his gaze was sharp, analytical. His movements were not those of a common mechanic. They were fluid, precise, economical. He didn't reach for a wrench. He simply listened, his head cocked, his eyes scanning the intricate layout. "It's not a mechanical failure," he said after a moment, his voice steady against the drumming rain. Isabella scoffed. "My entire diagnostics team at Vance designed this system. It's showing an intermittent failure in the primary bus controller," Marcus interrupted smoothly, his fingers tracing a wire harness she couldn't even see clearly. "But the fault logs are wiped. Looks like a targeted EM pulse fried the redundant relays and the primary capacitor bank. The failsafe system was bypassed." The technical jargon, delivered with such casual authority, stunned her into silence. It was the language of her own top-tier engineers, yet he spoke it more fluently. Before she could process his words, he was already working. He retrieved a simple spool of copper wire and a pair of pliers from his toolbox. With the dexterity of a surgeon, he began weaving a complex bypass, his grease-stained hands moving with an intelligence that seemed utterly alien in this context. He salvaged a small, robust capacitor from the engine of an old pickup truck in his bay. 10 minutes became 15. He worked without hurry, with absolute focus. Finally, he connected the last wire, stood up, and nodded towards the driver's seat. "Try it now." Skeptical, Isabella slid into the leather seat. She turned the key. The engine, which world-class technicians had declared flawless, roared to life, its purr smoother than she had ever heard it. She was speechless. The man had not just fixed her car, He had diagnosed a sophisticated, deliberate attack and repaired it with spare parts from a junk heap. The $5,000 in her hands suddenly felt cheap, insulting. The next morning, Isabella sat in her sterile office, the Innovator of the Decade award, a cold, meaningless sculpture on her desk. The mechanic's words echoed in her mind. Targeted EM pulse. It was not a breakdown. It was sabotage. Her own team had run diagnostics after the incident and found nothing, writing it off as a fluke. But the quiet mechanic in the rain-soaked garage had seen the truth in minutes. The discrepancy gnawed at her. Who was he? She summoned her head of security, a stoic man with a past in government intelligence. I want to know everything about a man named Marcus Cole, she commanded, owner of Cole's Auto Repair. An hour later, the file landed on her desk. She opened it, and the world tilted on its axis. Marcus Cole, decorated Air Force captain, lead test pilot and systems engineer for the X-77 Wraith project, a top-secret hypersonic drone program the Pentagon had mysteriously shelved 5 years ago. His file was filled with commendations for unparalleled diagnostic acumen and genius-level aptitude in avionics and propulsion systems. He had resigned his commission abruptly following a catastrophic test flight failure. The official report cited pilot error, but a classified addendum, which her security chief had managed to unearth, suggested Cole had refused to approve a flight due to a safety flaw he'd discovered, was overruled, and the subsequent crash killed his best friend. He had walked away from it all, a ghost in the machine he'd helped create. Her supercar's advanced avionics, which were based on a commercial version of the X-77's tech, would have been like a child's toy to him. Isabella drove back to the garage, her world remade. This time, she left the supercar at the curb and walked in, her arrogance replaced by a humbling curiosity. She found Marcus on a stool, patiently watching Maya color in a drawing. He looked up, his expression neutral, guarded. Maya, however, beamed. She hopped off her stool and held up her artwork to Isabella. It was a picture of a big smiling sun, radiating bright yellow lines. Daddy says everyone has a sun inside them, the little girl said with profound simplicity. But sometimes it gets cloudy and they forget it's there. The child's innocent words pierced the armor around Isabella's heart, a feeling she couldn't name, a mix of shame and a strange, unfamiliar warmth welled within her. That's a beautiful drawing, Maya, she said, her voice softer than she'd heard it in years. She turned to Marcus. I need to apologize. I was arrogant and dismissive, and I was wrong. Marcus just nodded, accepting the apology without ceremony. You were right about the car, Isabella continued, stepping further into his world. It was sabotage. I believe it's connected to a major defense contract my company is bidding on. My biggest rival, Croft Dynamics, is trying to undermine me. My own people missed it. I need help. I need your help. The plea hung in the air, a bridge between two worlds. Marcus looked from the powerful CEO to his daughter's trusting face. The world he had run from was trying to pull him back in. He had no desire for its glory or its politics, but he recognized the familiar shadow of corruption, the same kind of reckless ambition that had cost him his career and his friend. He saw the genuine fear in Isabella's eyes, the crack in her perfect facade. I don't work in boardrooms anymore, he said slowly. My terms are simple. We do it here, my way. Isabella agreed without hesitation. The alliance was formed not in a signed contract, but in a shared look of understanding in a humble garage. He was no longer just a mechanic, and she was no longer just a client. They were partners. They began in his garage, the damaged components from her supercar laid out on a clean workbench like evidence at a crime scene. Marcus handled the fried circuit boards with a delicate touch, examining them under a large magnifying lamp. The energy signature is unique, he murmured, pointing to a scorched microprocessor. The pulse was modulated to a specific frequency to bypass the outer shielding and target only the avionics controller. This wasn't made in a basement. This is a prototype weapon. He looked at her, his eyes serious. This wasn't just to make you late for a party. This was a field test, and you were the guinea pig. They hit a wall. The device's signature was a ghost, designed to be untraceable. They had the what, but not the who or the how. To find the source, I need more data, Marcus said. I need to see how your network talks to itself. Isabella made a call. The next day, Marcus walked into the gleaming R&D division of Vance Aeronautics. He wore his usual work pants and a clean t-shirt, and the sea of engineers in lab coats parted before him like he was a different species. Isabella introduced him simply as a special consultant. The skepticism was palpable. How could this grease-stained mechanic possibly help them? Their doubts were silenced when a friendly visitor arrived at Isabella's office. Julian Croft, the handsome, charming CEO of Croft Dynamics. He was also her ex-fiancé, a man she had left when his ambition had curdled into something she no longer recognized. "Isabella, darling," he said, his smile a predatory gleam. "I heard you've been having some technical troubles. Do let me know if my people can be of any assistance." His condescension was infuriating, but it was his specificity that raised the alarm. After Julian left, Marcus, who had been observing from an anteroom, replayed the security footage on a monitor. He zoomed in on Julian's chest. "That lapel pin," he said, his voice tight. "It's not just a pin, it's a passive wide-spectrum data scanner. He was sniffing your Wi-Fi, looking for vulnerabilities." The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. "He's not just trying to disrupt your operations, Isabella. He's planning to steal your entire proposal for the defense contract. The car, the visit, it's all a prelude to the main attack. He's going to hit your network during the final submission." The threat was no longer abstract. It was personal and imminent. The full scope of Julian's betrayal was laid bare. He wasn't just a corporate rival. He was a spurned lover, willing to destroy her life's work out of spite. They knew the who and the what. Now they needed to set a trap. "He'll use a more powerful version of the EM weapon," Marcus deduced, pacing the length of Isabella's vast office. "He'll create a localized blackout at headquarters, just for a few seconds. In that window, when your primary security systems are rebooting, his software worm will enter the network and extract the project files. It will look like a simple power surge to your IT team." Isabella's face was pale. "He could ruin me." "No," Marcus said, a firm, reassuring confidence in his voice. "He's going to expose himself." He sketched a diagram on a digital whiteboard, his hands moving with practiced speed. "We're going to let the attack happen. I'll build a honeypot, a decoy server, completely isolated from your main network. We'll load it with a fake proposal, one that's designed to be irresistible. When his worm takes the bait, it will trigger a traceback protocol I designed years ago. It will burrow back through his encrypted relays and give us the physical source of the intrusion in real time. Irrefutable proof." Isabella looked at the diagram, then at Marcus. Her entire company, her reputation, her future. It all rested on this man who, a week ago, she wouldn't have trusted to change her tire. It was a leap of faith into a world she didn't understand, guided by a quiet genius she was only beginning to. "The final bid presentation is in 2 days," she said. "The board will be there. So will Julian, as a professional courtesy." "Perfect," Marcus said. "A public stage is exactly what we need." The day of the board meeting arrived, charged with an almost unbearable tension. The conference room was a theater of corporate power, filled with stern-faced board members. Julian Croft sat in the front row, a picture of smug cordiality. Marcus stood quietly at the back of the room, a ghost in the machine, holding a small, ruggedized tablet. Isabella stood at the podium, took a deep breath, and began her presentation. 5 minutes in, it happened. The lights flickered violently. The massive presentation screens went black. A collective gasp filled the room. Isabella's tech team began to panic, speaking frantically into their headsets. But Isabella's eyes found Marcus in the dim light. He gave her a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. On his tablet, a glowing green line was snaking its way across a network map, a digital predator that had just swallowed the bait. The line raced backward through layers of digital camouflage until it terminated in a single, flashing red dot. The executive server at Croft Dynamics. He had him. Julian, seeing the unnerving calm on Isabella's face, realized his trap had failed. A cruel sneer twisted his handsome features. He pulled out his phone. "If I can't have the contract," he hissed, his voice carrying in the silent room, "then neither can you." He pressed a button. It was a dead man's switch. A logic bomb, hidden deep within Vance Aeronautics' primary network, was triggered, initiating a catastrophic system-wide data wipe. Panic erupted. But Marcus was prepared for this too. He had not just built a trap, he had anticipated treachery. The honeypot was only part of his design. He had also created a full real-time mirror of Isabella's entire network, running on a cloaked independent server cluster. As Julian's logic bomb began its rampage, Marcus's fingers flew across his tablet. With a series of rapid commands, he isolated the infected network segments, seamlessly rerouted all core functions to the clean backup, and deployed a counter-agent that neutralized the logic bomb in seconds. The main screens flickered back to life, but instead of Isabella's presentation, they displayed Julian Croft's smirking face from his company ID photo, right next to the damning traceback data that showed the attack originating from his own office. The room was silent, then erupted. Julian was finished, exposed and defeated by a genius he never saw coming. Security escorted a stunned and sputtering Julian Croft from the building. The board, recovering from the shock, broke into spontaneous applause. Vance Aeronautics was awarded the contract, their bid secured by Marcus's invisible shield. In the press conference that followed, reporters hailed Isabella as a cool-headed visionary, but she corrected them, her voice clear and strong. "The credit belongs to one person," she announced to the world. "A man of extraordinary talent and integrity, Mr. Marcus Cole." Later, in the quiet of her office, the city lights twinkling below, she made him the offer. "Chief Technology Officer, a seat on the board, name your price." Marcus smiled, a genuine, easy smile that reached his eyes. "I appreciate that, Isabella, more than you know. But I'm a mechanic. I fix things. I can't do that from a corner office." He looked out the window at the sprawling city. "But I have a counter-proposal. Give me a garage, a bigger one than mine. Let me build a team of people who like to get their hands dirty. We'll be your skunkworks division. No suits, no board meetings, just a mandate to build the future." Isabella's answering smile was the brightest he had ever seen. "It's yours." A few months later, the Vance Innovation Lab, known to everyone as the Garage, was the most productive and creative division in the company. It was a place of controlled chaos, of brilliant minds and hard-working hands, led by a man who preferred a wrench to a whiteboard. The final scene of their old lives did not take place in a boardroom or a lab, but in a sun-drenched park on a Saturday afternoon. Marcus and Isabella sat on a bench, watching Maya chase a butterfly across the grass. There was an easy comfort between them now, the space once filled with tension and mistrust, now occupied by shared laughter and quiet understanding. He reached over and took her hand, his calloused fingers lacing through her smooth ones. They were no longer a mechanic and a CEO from different worlds. They were simply Marcus and Isabella, their separate universes merged into a new, shared reality, building a family where there had once been only ambition and loneliness. Have you ever felt that your true worth was unseen, hidden behind a simple title or a humble appearance? The world is full of hidden virtuosos, people whose greatest strengths are not listed on a resume, but are etched into their character. True strength isn't about the power you wield over others, but the integrity you hold within, yourself. It is the quiet courage to fix what is broken, whether it's an engine, a company, or a human heart.